A Brazilian dragon was born 5,000 miles away at the mouth of the Amazon River, earning the reputation of a cold-blooded samurai with his unique knockout skills.
And now Machida trying to take advantage. A lot of people confused by Machida. He's in a lot of trouble here.
We'd heard for years that karate didn't work in MMA until Lyoto Machida proved us wrong. But who is Lyoto Machida? If you want to know a little bit more about the UFC light heavyweight champion, this video is a compilation of stories chronicling the UFC rise of the Dragon. Performing in the most competitive arenas around the world for over 20 years, the Japanese-Brazilian fighter had a dominant rise in the sport of MMA. Lyoto is the third son of the famous karate practitioner Lyoto Machida. The Future Clan founder was 22 years old when he moved to Brazil from the land of the rising sun. The immigrant traveled to different cities, teaching martial arts to local people. Lyoto arrived in Brazil not knowing the language. He had nothing but a suitcase full of clothes and a desire to teach karate, to which he dedicated his whole life. He opened an academy in the city of Belém and began to indulge his sons in the Japanese combat style. So, when Lyoto was 3 years old, his father began teaching him, and over the years, his training expanded to include sumo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, boxing, and Muay Thai. But what he was learning went far beyond blocks, kicks, and katas. At the age of 13, Lyoto received a black belt and started competing. Lyoto participated in many national tournaments and was a devoted follower of karate. Over time, he got involved in other fighting competitions, and as he got older, Machida would partake in the typical activities of a young man. Still, he never went too far from a gym or dojo where he would train and compete in karate, sumo wrestling, or the Brazilian art of jiu-jitsu. There was no denying that the young Machida was destined to be a warrior. Long hours in the gym and participation in a variety of tournaments in various disciplines that fit around his academics would make preparation to fight professionally anything but easy. When Lyoto realized that Lyoto truly desired to be a fighter, he decided to introduce his son to an old acquaintance, the famed Japanese professional wrestler Antonio Inoki, who fought the great Muhammad Ali. Machida came to Japan in the early 2000s to train for his mixed martial arts debut with the help of his new sponsors. Lyoto spent the following 3 years traveling to various locations in Japan to enhance his martial arts skills. When the Brazilian was ready, Antonio Inoki set him up to compete in a major Ultimate Crush event. The 220-pound karate enthusiast made his professional MMA debut with a fight with Kengo Watanabe at an NJPW show in Tokyo in 2003. He entered the arena dressed to the nines in a look curated by his inventive Japanese managers. His relentless dominance throughout the match ultimately doomed his rival. After winning by unanimous decision, Machida was congratulated by his great mentor, Antonio Inoki. Following a successful debut, the 25-year-old Lyoto performed at a jungle fight event, meeting future Tough Season 1 finalist Stephan Bonner, who was on the verge of becoming a star in the United States. This time, the fighter was entirely focused on karate. The Brazilian maintained his distance with composure and only attacked when he felt the need to. During the course of 5 minutes, Machida disfigured his opponent's face to the point where the doctors had to step in to end the fight.
Oh le contre! Oh là là, la rapidité! Au sol, vu qu'il est en train de se régaler debout, et quant à Bonnet... Oh, il est explosé maintenant de l'autre côté. Ah ça y est, là il a bien égalisé le combat. Et ben voilà,
Avec des déçus bonheur, mais c'est quand même préférable.
4 months later, when unbeaten rising star Rich Franklin faced off against Machida on New Year's Eve in Japan, fight fans quickly hopped on the bandwagon. The future UFC champion had never lost a professional fight before and was on a 14-fight winning streak. Franklin made an effort to take the lead, but the karate master countered with devastating precision. Another intercepting cross led to a second-round technical knockout victory for Machida. Now things were starting to get interesting. With 3 victories in quick succession, Lyoto got a fight at the prestigious K1 tournament in 2004. 2 additional wins were added to his record when he submitted Michael McDonald, a newcomer to mixed martial arts. And K1 legend and karate world champion Sam Greco.
体から様々な格闘技に触れてまいりましたこの両党。
勇気ありますよね。
完全にポジションマウント、さあマウントだ。殴っていく、殴っていく。さあ殴った。勝者青Lyotoです。判定に対1。
1 year later, we witnessed yet another prominent figure lose to Machida, BJ Penn, who was 9-1 at the time, moved up in weight to face the then heavyweight and lost a 3-round decision. Soon Machida was on his way to the States for a new chapter in his career. Lyoto defeated previous local league champion Vernon White in his US MMA debut for the now-defunct WFA in 2006. In that fight, Machida was always 1 step ahead for 3 rounds, which earned him the unanimous decision.
Is there that adage in this sport that there is in boxing that styles make fights? And left continuing to trip up in the cheek, and there's a takedown.
The winner, Lyoto Machida.
With the demise of that organization 6 months later, the organization was purchased by the UFC, and the Brazilian found himself on the Ultimate Promotions roster at the age of 28.
Just did my job. I did well, but I did just my job.
When Machida first entered the UFC, many people questioned karate's viability, with some even going so far as to claim that traditional combat arts were doomed in the context of modern mixed martial arts. So the Dragon, as the Brazilian was known in the United States, had to accomplish his personal goals and validate the effectiveness of his father's teachings in the octagon. Lyoto entered the light heavyweight division and began his ascent to the championship. He won 3 times in a row during his first 8 months on the major stage, showcasing immaculate distance regulation and spearing attacks. Machida entered the title fight after proving himself, and he faced a formidable opponent in Sokuju in UFC 79, who was known as the African Killer for his monstrous strength and a string of shocking victories in Pride FC. When it came down to it, though, the volatile Cameroonian was no match for the icy sniper. After unsuccessfully trying to finish the opponent with ground and pound, the Dragon passed his opponent's side control and squeezed an arm triangle for the win.
As you pointed out, a lot of he got caught. Sokuju got caught. Machida, he's got excellent timing. I mean, he's a very intelligent guy, and his timing is awesome. 45 seconds remains. Plenty of time. Sokuju's got it.
Lyoto, the Dragon Machida.
While the Brazilian was swimming with great white sharks, former champion Tito Ortiz was trying to get back on track after losing his belt. As he casually paced the cage in UFC 84, Machida threw snappy kicks at him. The Karate Kid landed a knee on Ortiz's liver in the 3rd round. The villain recovered swiftly and executed a triangle armbar with 30 seconds left. Lyoto displayed resiliency by fighting until the final bell, which resulted in a decisive victory for him. As a result of this achievement, his uncommon approach gained widespread respect. Dana White warned that the Dragon would become next to impossible to damage.
Machida is a defensive fighter. He's a counterpuncher. At some point, he had to go after him. It's hard to trade with that guy because When you throw punches, he's never there.
He challenged the fearless and unbeatable Thiago Silva to the title of Eliminator with a perfect record of 13. And he was also one of the most promising fighters in mixed martial arts, having won 13 matches in a row. From the start, Thiago tried to force back and forth exchanges, but Machida stopped him with great counterattacks and knocked him down many times. Silva kept fighting until Lyoto ended the fight in the last seconds.
I've talked about it on the air. And give you the opportunity to air what he throws at you. Finishes Thiago Silva at the end of the round.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They've been gone a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
In UFC 113, former Pride Grand Prix winner Mauricio Shogun Rua was the first to defeat Lyoto in the main event. Shogun took the lion's share of the lead and put his energy into delivering strong kicks as they fought. In clinch work, Machida occasionally unleashed flurries with his counter-strike. The defending champion won a razor-thin decision after 5 rounds. The result caused a great deal of controversy, leading the promotion to schedule a rematch. The Dragon fought the rematch despite a broken arm during training camp. Many expected another chess battle, but the first round astonished them. For the first time, Machida came up short and lost the title. The setback shook Lyoto, but the elderly master Yoshizo was most impacted. He offered to retire his son from MMA due to health concerns, but his son refused. Lyoto returned to the octagon 6 months later, but was defeated again by Rampage Jackson in UFC 123.
He's gotta look out that he doesn't get slammed, because this is a quick Rampage Jackson's back.
In April 2011, Machida had the opportunity to dethrone Randy Couture, a 3-time UFC champion who was 47 years old at the time. Captain America held firm, but Lyoto's responses were on point, baffling the veteran with deception. Nidongari, an exquisite jumping front kick, knocked Couture out and sent his tooth flying. Following his victory, Machida challenged for the ultimate prize. The strap was wrapped around the waist of young John Jones at the time, who brutally defeated Shogun Rua before destroying Rampage. Lyoto started UFC 140 off strong, cutting the distance quickly and splitting the opponent's timing.
Face no doubt about it.
He was the first fighter to defeat Jones in a round. Thanks to his superior speed and striking, champion John Jones decided he couldn't beat Lyoto Machida standing up in the next round, so he took the fight to the mat and slashed Machida open with an elbow. Machida's eyes started bleeding and was seeing 3 Jones at the same time. The champion continued his forward progress with confidence and encountered the Dragon. John grabbed the Brazilian's high elbow in a guillotine choke attempt and dragged him to the cage. Involvement from the referee was the only thing that saved the day. The 37-year-old Lyoto then lost 3 straight to the new middleweight elites. His initial retirement rumors surfaced. Before his 40th birthday, the veteran was scheduled to face rising star Eric Anders, who was considered a rising star with a perfect 10-0 record. Despite all odds, Lyoto surprised the home fans with a long-awaited success after 3 years. 2 months later, Machida secured one more victory, defeating Vitor Belfort by knocking him out with a front kick.
Another highlight reel.
In 2018, Lyoto, who was 40 at the time, decided to finish his career in the UFC. At the same time, Bellator offered him a promotion with more favorable terms during this period. The Dragon finally retired from the title of absolute champion after 11 years and 24 appearances. It has been widely speculated that Machida was given an 18-month suspension in November 2016 after admitting to using 7-keto-DHEA, which is on USADA's list of anabolic agents, which may have been a factor in Lyoto's decision to leave the UFC. Gerard Mousasi claims there is hard evidence that the 40-year-old Machida was using PEDs. In his Bellator debut, he defeated Lyoto Carvalho.
I don't like the way he avoids attacks, but he avoided it completely, so you guys can put pressure down on Carvalho so he can open up.
But from the clinch, takes Carvalho down.
And then later Chael Sonnen in a great series of fights. With this victory, the elderly dog rose to the top of the list of competitors, only to suffer a string of setbacks. He lost to Mousasi, Phil Davis, and Ryan Bader. The loss to Fabian Edwards at age 44 was the nail in the coffin, although he gave a good account of himself in these fights. No doubt, the Brazilian's career is soon coming to an end, but no matter what happens, the Dragon's accomplishments will always be remembered in the history of MMA. He was undeniably getting older, and his energy wasn't what it used to be compared to the new generation of fighters. Even so, Lyoto's profile is one of the most interesting we've ever seen. Most fighters don't face big names when they first start out, but Lyoto has been fighting top fighters from the beginning of his career, and that hasn't changed. He opened the door for karate fighters in the UFC by showing how effective it could be. Many of the best fighters today use karate skills in the cage, and we can't help but think of how it all started with Lyoto the Dragon Machida.